Thank you, Peyton.
Of course.
And thank you to Community Life for always hosting and putting together such a nice spread of goodies to get us going. Again, good evening. I'm Matthew Law. I am the president of the Eastmark Assembly. If you didn't know, that is one of the 3 governing entities here at Eastmark, and it's the one who's primarily focused on community life, engagement, partnerships, philanthropy, etc. I'd like to welcome everybody here to our Orange Sofa Talk on Safe Streets. I see a lot of fresh faces here tonight, so that means you probably don't know really what an orange sofa is or why it's here. But the Orange Sofa Talks go back all the way 12 years ago to the very beginning of Eastmark, and are our own TED-style talks that we bring in speakers and have different discussions on to help enrich or enlighten or solve problems that are prevalent or important to us here in Eastmark. And so tonight, before I can say that, and this year, our Orange Sofa Talks have been underwritten by Meta. So I always like to say thank you to Meta. They're the ones who help make sure that they are paying for all the good snacks and goodies, so eat up. And they're helping us make sure that we use as little resident funds as possible to do these and keep it sustainable. Tonight, I am very excited to welcome Melissa Leon to the couch. She's the founder of Eastmark Safe Streets. I just really admire what Melissa has done. She saw a need. She saw something that I was telling her earlier, has been a discussion point or a problem or an idea or a place that's been in Eastmark literally since the day Eastmark opened. And that's our streets. That's how do we stay safe? How do we control the speeding or the kids or the this or the this or the this? And Melissa just took it on herself because she saw that need and is organizing all of us together to start finding solutions, to stop complaining and start figuring out how we can move forward. So Melissa, thank you for all you've done so far and for coming out tonight and being our host for tonight's Orange Sofa.
Thanks.
Joining her is Ryan Hudson, Senior Engineer for the City of Mesa. And then Mr. Bellows and Forrest are Mesa Police Crime Prevention Officers. So tonight we've really got the best team we could ask for here on the couch. We've got the city and we've got our local police who are out there really keeping us safe and making sure that we figure out everything from what is the actual rule. I saw a Facebook thing today go on. What are the theoretical rules, and making sure that we are all on the same page. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Melissa to get us started tonight and to help make the streets of Eastmark safer.
I have a mic. I don't know if it's on. Is it on?
That will make it louder so when people talk, they can speak into it anyway.
Okay.
You too. So you're gonna have to throw the mic back and forth.
Thank you all for coming. I hope it's not all out of me shaming you to be here. If you were on the Facebook thread the other day that came from my frustration. I really appreciate the kind words that have come from the community. It's funny, somebody said to me the other day, you're so passionate about it, and I'm not. I'm an accountant, you guys. I'm just your neighbor. I just live here. I just saw a need, and I've got kids of my own. I have a 10, a 12, and a 14-year-old, and I just felt like if I'm good at anything, it's usually bringing people together and looking for solutions, and so that was really what I decided to do. In April of this year, so not even 6 months ago, was kind of when my personal journey of this started. One of the very first things I did was send an email to the City of Mesa Transportation Department, and I received an email back from a man on Ryan's team. I didn't get the answer I was looking for the first time, so I asked for his supervisor, and this is who I got. Hi, Scott. And then the second thing I did was send the same similar email to Mesa Police, and almost the same day. I think John called me, and the three of these men have been incredibly supportive in teaching me along the way. I've learned a lot. We have kind of a little script that we'll go through tonight, but this really should be conversational, and stop us anytime that you want. Because he walked in front of me, I'm going to take a second to also thank Scott. Been incredibly supportive. If you guys don't know Scott, he's our vice mayor and town councilman, also a resident of Eastmark. And the guy that gets tagged all the time. That's his official title. I sent him the same email. I did not know him before I started this little journey, and he responded on a Sunday morning to me, telling me all the things I could do. So to all four of you, I really want to say thank you. Before I get too far, I also want to call out some of the things you're sitting on. This beautiful map right here was made by this young man, Jonah Gabaldon, who's sitting in the room. Jonah has started a business in Eastmark called Salt Squad. Is that still the name of it? And we met a couple years ago, and I was helping mentor him through his business startup, and we got talking, and I told him I was working on this, and he volunteered a lot of time and edits and work with me on this, and so I really just wanted to say thank you for that. So this is totally homemade, has not been sent out to the general population, so you're getting the first look at it, but really the design of it was to try to draw your attention to the places where you can anticipate wheels of any kind and with all ages on them. So I just really wanted to make sure I called that out. I'm going to let these guys talk a bit, so I'll throw a couple questions at each of you if that's okay, and feel free to talk in any direction that you'd like. One of the first conversations I had as I was starting with this was, it was Dave, right, that I spoke to? It was with Dave, and then very shortly after with Ryan. And one of the things Ryan taught me very quickly is it's very much a three-legged stool between infrastructure and enforcement and driver behavior. And so that's what I hope to represent for you tonight is those three areas. So if you have questions about the infrastructure or why something is set up the way that it is, what the police are doing to enforce the laws, and then of course the thing that really impacts the majority of the behavior is the humans behind the wheel. So does that sound like a good place to start?
That works for me.
Okay. So Ryan, I think let's talk you first, if you don't mind. Let's talk about the growth that Eastmark has seen over the last couple of years. I prompted you with some stats, but feel free to throw in your own. I know you brought some props, so I'll let you take a couple minutes to kind of set infrastructure stage. Is that cool? Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. And again, I'm Ryan Hudson. I work with the Transportation Department with City of Mesa. I am the city traffic engineer, and got a few teams that definitely works very closely with the community. Melissa has already mentioned one of them. We have a traffic studies team within our traffic engineering section of the department. And in that team, we have traffic studies analysts, and they come to certain parts of the city, Eastmark being one of them, and we conduct studies. We collect data, we make observations, we determine if the roadway system, is being used as we anticipate it. And a lot of things go into that. There's a lot of different parameters that go in, especially when you have schools and you have parks and you have the different users of the roadway. But at the end of the day, our main goal as traffic studies is to ensure that our roads are being safely used by all of the users on the roadway, and that's our primary goal. That's what we're guided by. We work very closely with other groups within the transportation department. We have an operations side of the house and an engineering side of the house, and really anything public roadway, sidewalks, traffic signals, street lights, those are all the things, signs and markings on the road, those are all the things that the transportation department is in charge of. And so I did bring a map of the Eastmark area that's pretty closely represents what's out there today. And I say that because of how drastically this area has changed over the past 10 years, and the growth continues, the change continues. At this point, I think it's very, very close that most of the roadways are actually in Eastmark. There have been times where portions of the neighborhood were being built, and Everton Terrace was like the only north-south road that ran through the neighborhood. And that's not what Everton Terrace was built to do. Now there's Eastmark Parkway, but there's still development happening along there. So as development has occurred, the roadways have been used differently, and they continue to change and continue to get used differently. I think from the infrastructure side, Melissa said it very well that, you know, we're focused on infrastructure, working with as a partner with enforcement, and then education and outreach to the neighborhoods to ensure that the roadways are being used safely. Again, that's our ultimate goal for the city of Mesa is safe street use. So, Melissa, I don't know if that's a good icebreaker or not, if there's anything that you feel like I could touch on a little better. Or.
No, it's great. I think some of the stats that Peyton or Kesley pulled for me, I can't remember which one of you did. It was Peyton. Eastmark is 5 square miles, so it's not a giant space. But I want you to think about all the surrounding areas that are here too. Obviously, Cadence, Bella Via. There's all the people that come in for our various schools. So we have Eastmark High School, which is 7 through 12. Basis is K through 9. Sequoia's here K through 6, I believe. Not to mention giant elementary schools at Silver Valley and GPA just around the corner. One of the stats I have is from July of 2020, so 5 years almost to the day. We had 1,900 homes in 2020, and today there are 5,264 homes. That does not include the apartments, the estates, or Encore. So think about the very, very wide variety of humans that live here. If you assume 4 people per house, there's obviously some with many more and some with far fewer. That's 20,000 souls that live here. Just live here, not commute in. So as you start to hear some of this data and the stats, keep in mind that that's kind of who we're dealing with, and we're still in the middle of growing pains through a lot of that. Brian, I don't know which, if you or John wants to talk more here, but why don't you talk a little bit about what you've seen as in your time here. So I will also say Safe Streets, what I host, tonight is being hosted by Cohere. One of the things I try to host once a month is a Safe Streets teaching or an education or a class. Brian and John have been at the last 3 of them, I believe. 3 you've done. Ryan's going to be with me in September, and this coming month in August we have Mesa Fire. So those meetings will always revolve with an effort to educate and share information. I would really encourage children to come to those because that's really who we're trying to share stuff with. But you've spent a lot of time here both on duty and then also in your time here. Can you share a little bit about what you've seen and what you hear, what's on everybody's mind so far that you know about?
So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ryan Bellows. I've been with the Mesa Police Department for just over 11 years. Me and my partner John are currently both assigned to the community action team as detectives, and what we do is kind of find out what problems are bothering the community and work with the community and various other agencies and city departments to try to solve those problems. So we are not the traffic unit, meaning we have a lot of fires to put out. We don't specifically focus on traffic, though we can at times and do in our free time, but we can help coordinate getting the traffic unit to an individual area if that area is seeing an uptick in accident speeding, things of that nature. So obviously the collective job of the police department is to change poor traffic behavior when it comes to traffic enforcement. We do that through a myriad of ways, so education and then enforcement. But when an officer makes a stop, it can be anything from a verbal warning all the way up to an arrest if the violation is criminal. You guys might not believe this, but officers, we don't actually really like writing tickets to people that have day-to-day jobs and are contributing to society. So we generally try to lead in communities like yours where everyone's hardworking and they're going to work. We try to lead with as much enforcement or as much education as we can, and then kind of switch to the enforcement side. At the current moment, you guys might not know this, there's 4 Mesa Police Districts. We have Fiesta and Central that are on the west side of the city, Red Mountain that kind of encompasses the central proportion of the city, and then Superstition. The boundaries get kind of weird, but realistically what it is right now is everything east of Power Road, and that goes from the Salt River down to Germain. And so what that means is that the officers that cover this area are getting deployed from the substation at Ellsworth and Guadalupe, but they have that entire area to cover. So historically speaking, we've been, I want to say our coverage has been limited because of our, just the sheer amount of area that we have to cover. However, there's good news on that front. As of August 11th of this year, we constructed a new police station at Power and Brown that will be taking the northeast portion of the city. So again, the boundaries get weird, but realistically what we're going to have is everything from about Power and Southern south, meaning that the area of the district's effectively been cut in half, and that is going to basically allocate half of the cops that weren't there back down to this area. So we're hoping that will result in more proactive enforcement among our patrol officers. I know we have had our motors out here. Our motors they're like gold in the department. If we can get them wherever we can get them, we get them. But they're very limited commodities, so we don't always have them here. As far as the problems that we're seeing, and these problems are kind of universal through most communities. Distracted driving, I would say, is one of the biggest problems. Call it a problem. Juvenile drivers, inexperienced drivers, sometimes inexperienced drivers driving recklessly. It can be a major problem. DUI can be a major problem. Speeding, failing to yield for pedestrians. That's going to be a big problem out here. And pedestrians meaning people walking across crosswalks and failing to yield for bikes sometimes. We'll get into the actual laws surrounding the e-bikes and stuff a little bit later, but that's really what we're seeing out here and the behaviors we're hoping to curb. Accidents, as the city grows, as different portions of the city grow, that means more traffic, that means more accidents, that means more fatalities, and we're going to do everything we can to curb that, but we're all going to need your help, to spread that message. So we have some things in the works that we're hoping will help. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. If I haven't said it all, I know I said it already, but I'm going to say it again. The resources, these men all work for the city, right? Like they all have jobs, they're getting paid to sit here tonight, have been so incredibly responsive and helpful. If you have comments or questions, I can share contact information. These are all resources to all of you. And I've been blown away by how quickly and responsive they've been. And I'll keep saying it until no one hears me anymore. But everybody's showing up and the residents have to keep showing up because we're the ones causing and have the solution to the problem. So hopefully if you hear nothing else from me tonight, it's that I'm part of the problem, so are all of you, but we're also all part of the solution too. Let's talk about data. I know you're an engineer, you like that kind of stuff, right? Okay, so one of the very first things that Dave set up when I started calling and chirping in his ear was a speed study right away. So talk to me a little bit how speed studies work, what you do with that information, why does it matter, and then what does it trigger from a city perspective?
Yeah, sure. And just from a whole city perspective, we collect traffic volumes throughout the entire city on every arterial street and most of the larger collector streets.
Can you define those two things?
The difference really in arterial is like Ray Road and Ellsworth Road, right? Those are the main arteries of the city. Generally speaking, that's your mile to mile, since we're really on a grid system in Mesa. The collectors and the major collectors are usually those half mile, a little bit smaller usage type streets. Point 22 Eastmark Parkway would kind of fall into that category. They would definitely be like more of your major collector streets, but again, they're set between the arteries or the arterials. And then you can keep stepping down to minor collectors and then residential streets and that sort of thing. So that's the difference, but we collect the city traffic volumes. Basically, every other year we're out there collecting traffic volumes. And that's just to show where are patterns changing, where are maybe hotspots of volumes that are increasing that we're maybe not expecting. And then in some localized corridors or areas, we'll do speed studies. And those are a lot of the times prompted by residents that will call in and say, hey, I feel like I have a speeding problem on my street. And Eastmark Parkway, in the years that the schools have come online, they have grown, everything around it's grown. Eastmark Parkway has been one of those corridors that we have collected speed and volumes on. And so we take a look at the data, see how things are that particular year, translate that to how that compares to the posted speed limit out there, how it translates to what we feel is acceptable for operating speeds? Is it in compliance with the posted speed limit out there, or the majority of the speeds? A lot of the times we look at what is the 85th percentile speed, which basically means this is the speed at which 85% of everybody's driving at or below. You're always going to have top-end speeders, and we try to curb that, right, with the enforcement to really drive that down. But that's one of the big measures that we look at. And like I said, we've been out on Eastmark Parkway the past 5+ years. Have gotten counts over those years to kind of see how things are operating, what are speeds. And it goes throughout the course of a whole day. So we can see from 7 to 8, clearly the volumes spike on Eastmark Parkway, right, due to all the schools. And we've taken speed counts at different locations that we feel are representative of the areas of high intensity or the pedestrian crossings, and just to see if there are any trends that we should be concerned with. And if we do see trends, can that be addressed through infrastructure in some sort of way, whether it could be signage or it could be changing the actual roadway itself, which is a very impactful thing, or is it something that we can coordinate with the traffic enforcement unit on? Because we're able, again, to slice and dice that data and say, for the past speed counts that we've done, there's been a trend between 7:30 and 8 that we have a collection of speeders, and can we get enforcement at that time? Mm-hmm. That's kind of what we do from a traffic speed and volume perspective, is just try to look at those types of patterns and see how they're performing over time.
One of the things that triggered my wanting to talk to the city was Eastmark Parkway. My kids go to Basis, and I live in the original section, so I'm right there, and it's very scary to cross Eastmark Parkway in the morning in a vehicle, let alone on a bike. I would not let my 10 and 12-year-old ride their bikes to school, and I'm less than quarter of a mile as the crow flies. So I'm a little bit of a chicken when it comes to that. So we spent a lot of time, he's explained to me in great detail a lot of the different elements of infrastructure and how it changes behavior. We've also sat, both of us, together twice. I know you've done it more than once with Basis, with the Sequoia principle. And so there are a lot of different elements in the way people behave. Now, obviously not all of those people, not all of the students reside in Eastmark, right? There's public schools, so people can come from anywhere to attend them. One of the things, so since I started all of this, I am a little bit of want to be involved in everything, and I am now on the City Transportation Advisory Board, and Ryan leads it. Is that the right word? He keeps it all under control.
The staff liaison of the board.
Yeah. And so one of the things I learned at one of the meetings that I'd love for you to talk to quickly is about calming efforts. The presentation you gave on the horizontal versus vertical and the different types of calming measures that exist can you give a couple sentences on that?
Yeah, and then traffic calming really at the end of the day is just slowing speeds down, right? And we get a lot of requests that come into our department based on residents that feel that they're speeding on the streets, like I mentioned before. That's a very, very frequent traffic study request that we get. People are speeding on my street. And a lot of the times they're on their residential streets where they live, or they're pulling their car into their driveway each and every day, or their kids are playing in the front yard. And a lot of the infrastructure in Mesa, especially in West and Central Mesa, those streets were built back in the 70s, 80s, that time frame. And a lot of the streets are very straight, very long, very wide. And so we have a speed hump policy program where we have gone into those streets, and there's a process to get speed humps or speed cushions installed on those residential streets. Again, those features, those are vertical features, right, that you have to drive over, and they make people slow down because of that fact. We really just use those in retrofit situations, meaning that a speed hump or a speed cushion is something that we would generally come in and install on a street that was built a long time ago to help drive down speeds because they're long, because they're straight. In Eastmark, there are some streets I think that perform very well because they're short blocks, there's curves, they're tight, right? They're very narrow, and it feels uncomfortable to drive at high speeds. There are some that probably, I'm sure some in the room would say, I think speeds are still too high on them, and that's a valid thing. And that's where other features come into play for trying to calm the traffic down. Speed humps and speed cushions, again, that's a vertical element. There's also more horizontal elements like narrowing the roadway, making it feel uncomfortable to drive at a high speed. Curves in the roadway, that's also a horizontal way to drive down speed. It's not a long, straight corridor that someone feels like they can just go 40 miles per hour down. And there's some other strategies that really force drivers to have to turn and slow down to go through certain features. And so some of those things are sprinkled throughout the community in Eastmark. Again, I don't think there's any vertical elements throughout Eastmark, and that's intentional. You know, this is a newer roadway system. It was designed with the intent that vertical features really shouldn't be needed, but as time goes on, and if we get resident complaints and we collect speeds, and they meet the warrants of, hey, something else should be done here, speed humps and speed cushions could be a possible solution in the future. But we're hoping that the design of the streets, the narrow, the short blocks, the curvature, that helps self-reinforce people driving at the appropriate speed limits.
Like the annoying cutouts with the palm trees in it and like that's all intentional to slow us down. It always just bugs me, but it makes us slow down, right? So it's serving its purpose, which I love. I think Everton Terrace, probably show of hands, would say that it's a raceway. We see a lot of extreme speeding there. I feel like there more than anywhere else, but one of the things I've learned through this adventure also is the traffic light that was put in changes who drives on it and how fast they drive, right? Before it was just a side road that no one took. And now there's a light, so it changes the way that we behave in general for those things. So I've learned a lot from Ryan in a very short time, so I thank you for sharing all of that. All right, officers, let's see. I think the elephant in the room is probably kids on bikes. Probably 50% or more have come to talk about that. We have addressed e-bikes and e-scooters with the youth of this neighborhood, a few of them anyway, who show up to the meetings. Would you want to give a little bit of the Mesa flyer is on the tables on the chairs as well, with the little check marks?
Yeah.
If you want to talk about that quickly.
Okay. So first, before I even get into the actual e-bikes, I just want to talk about motorcycles, because I think one of the biggest problems right now is a lack of education and a lack of understanding of what the reality of what a motorcycle is. So if you get on Google and you type in like Suron, you see all this cool stuff you can buy for your 14 or 15-year-old pop up, have it shipped right to your door. Those are all motorcycles. They are not bicycles, they are just motorcycles. Per Mesa code and per ARS, you are required to be 16 years old, have a Class M license. If you're under 18 years old, wear a helmet to ride those on public streets. And I think that fact is not well understood. One of our biggest right now drivers of fatalities is when kids get on these things and they go 50 miles an hour and they think it's just a fast bike. It's a fast bike until a truck turns out in front of you and you hit the truck at 50 miles an hour, and then it's a motorcycle and you just hit a truck at 50 miles an hour. And if you're not wearing a helmet, you're almost certainly going to die. And even if you were, you still might die. And we're having a major problem with that. If it does not have pedals and it moves on its own, it is a motorcycle. End of story. That's something that we're really, really trying to drive home with our youth and with especially the parents. Because everyone's teenager turns 13 or 14 and they start begging their mom, I really want this. All my friends have this, it's totally safe, it's fine. And parents are giving into them, and then they're like, well, I just spent a couple $1,000s telling me I can't even ride it. That's what we're telling you. Outside of private property, there's nowhere you can legally ride that in the city of Mesa. Any more than if you took your 13-year-old down to the Harley-Davidson dealership and picked up a bike for him. It goes under the same premise. And that's because, again, those physics come into play. Over about 30 miles an hour, you collide with something that does not get out of your way or doesn't move, a house, a wall, a building, car at the right angle, you're probably going to die. All that energy in your body is going to get deposited into that. Your body can't handle that, and you're probably going to die. And so we're really, really, really trying to push that out. There is a reason why the e-bike limits are all right around 25 miles an hour. And that's because at 25 miles an hour, you still got a pretty good chance, even if you hit something hard, you're probably gonna get banged up pretty bad, but it might not be fatal, though that still can happen. In terms of the e-bikes, you'll see on your handout there is a whole bunch of kind of different classifications, and there's, can ride on the sidewalk, can't ride on the sidewalk. I'll kind of try to simplify it for you guys. I got an email from our traffic unit that I reviewed today that I think really does break down the way that most officers are interpreting these laws. If it has pedals and it goes less than 25 miles an hour, most officers, including our traffic units, are viewing them as an e-bike, and they're kind of viewing them in the same guise as a bicycle, meaning that if people are just riding them down the street, minding their own business and being responsible, we're not bothering them. If they are causing problems, then we can stop them, and then there's a whole myriad of requirements that they have to hit. For example, you cannot, in the city of Mesa, per Mesa City Code, you cannot ride an electric bicycle under electric power on any sidewalk in the city anywhere. They can ride in the bike lane and in the roadway, but to be in the bike lane and in the roadway, the rider has to be 16 years old. So the 16-year-old thing is a secondary violation, meaning we cannot stop somebody simply because they're a 13-year-old riding what appears to be an e-bike in the roadway if they're going 15 miles an hour. But if they're raising havoc and causing problems, that can be something that we stack on if we start issuing citations later. As far as the e-bikes and the motorbikes, like I said, right now, I think our biggest problem is education, and not even for the kids, for the parents, because if the parents weren't buying them for the kids, or if they were at least understanding what the laws are and buying them something they can actually ride, we wouldn't have many of these problems. So something we've been asked to do recently that we're probably going to start putting some forward momentum into is coming out with an educational message through our public information office, just something that we can put on our Facebook page, on our Instagram, that will help parents start to think, okay, maybe I shouldn't make this purchase for Christmas, or maybe I should get this instead. Something else we're going to start trying to do is work through our SROs in the high school to get some of this knowledge out. Again, the problem being they just don't know. You can get on Amazon, you buy it, spend some money, it's at your door in a few days. Everyone else is doing it, so why not? And that, for us, is the biggest problem, is that everybody's doing it. It goes from Las Sendas to Parkwood Ranch to Mulberry to Augusta Ranch, all the way down here, and we only have so many officers. The other problem that we run into is that these children, sometimes they don't like to stop for the police, but some do. And so when we have a group of individuals and one or two or three take off and one stops dutifully, sometimes our officers don't want to penalize the one kid that decided to stop. Instead, we're trying to look into a little bit deeper things. But when we do have kids that run and we catch them, their bikes are getting impounded, and they're usually getting criminal charges of some sort. So it is something we take seriously. It's something that the technology really outran the laws on when all this first started to come out, and it's something that we're still adapting to, even though these machines have probably been around in their current state for 5 years or so, maybe a little bit longer. It's something that we as a department, we're still adapting policies, we're still adapting tactics to try to understand how can we safely enforce these laws, because us driving our Tahoe through the city park trying to catch kids taking off on e-bikes isn't safe. But safely and effectively enforce these laws. And so that's a continued discussion among me, my partner, my commanders. It's a continued discussion, and has been, and will continue to be. Again, we're hoping that with the reallocation of officers more toward this area, you guys will get a little bit better customer service in our enforcement in Eastmark specifically, because we won't have all of those northern properties to take care of.
I'm glad you mentioned that the laws have not caught up with the technology. I mean, you guys remember cigarette vending machines? Like, it takes a while for this stuff to pick up and to recognize that it needs a little bit more enforcement. So it's on us right now to help share that message. So I would ask that each of you tries to share a link to a lot. I have tons of them. I mean, Scottsdale just put something out the other day. Maricopa Sheriff's Department just did too. I'm sure the city of Mesa has it. Just doesn't come up in my feed. So, but I can, if you just want to send a link to somebody who might have a kid that's writing it, the more parents know and are talking about it, that will help. I will say shaming parents does not help at all. I am a parent. I did not know that these things were illegal for my under 16-year-old until I started doing this work. And I would consider myself a pretty informed and educated person. So shaming adults, shaming children is not going to help, particularly on Facebook. There is definitely a vibe that goes on our Eastmark page. The parents are stupid, the kids are stupid, and then it turns into a war, and it just doesn't solve anything. I posted tonight, there was one of the Maricopa Sheriff's Department, Julie sent it to me, Julie's not here. And the sheriff is like, stop posting on your neighborhood page, go call somebody who actually has answers. And so I would say we have to really band together to make sure we're spreading information and not just making people feel stupid. Because when I feel backed into a corner, I respond just like most of you would too. So that's my little public outreach for the night. Okay, let's go back to you. Let's talk about changes that are going to happen in Eastmark with infrastructure. We've had some recently already. I know there's a beacon light. So Ryan's going to be here with me, I think it's like September 2nd, whatever that first Tuesday is, to talk specifically about the beacon light. Maybe you can talk about it now, and then any other infrastructure changes that we're looking at. The speed camera?
Absolutely.
All that.
So yeah, I mean, infrastructure catching up to all the homes that have been built, like Melissa's started off, the growth has been immense, but it's not just Eastmark, it's everything around Eastmark as well. But you've all seen the library being constructed, which I just drove past it coming in here, and it looks amazing. And every time I come back out here, which is not frequent enough, but I mean, in the last month, there's been changes, and so it's pretty cool to see that facility. The great thing about the library is that it's given us an opportunity to tack onto that project from a street infrastructure standpoint. And as part of the project, the library project, we will be modifying the Kinetic and Eastmark Parkway intersection. So there will be some curb line modifications. There will be a little bit of raised median modification. But the biggest thing that we're excited for is that the existing yellow crosswalk, that's just a crosswalk with static signs, is going to be upgraded to a full-blown signal for pedestrians. It is called the pedestrian hybrid beacon, is what's going to be installed at that intersection. And obviously that intersection is used by the school for their school crossings, and I know that it's also used by the community members. We know that because we've done a ton of observations out there to assess how it's used, when it's used, and who it's used by. So that's a big thing that's coming. The library, I believe, is anticipated to have a grand opening sometime leading into this winter, I think sometime in November, and all of that roadway work is a part of that. So that is what we're anticipating at this point, is that new traffic signal, pedestrian hybrid beacon, will be in operation with the grand opening of the library.
Is that signal like the one that's on Sossaman, just past the Costco for the golf carts, or is it more like the one on Inspirion where it's just a flasher?
Thank you for the question. Yes, and
Good question.
That's really helpful to lead me into kind of the differences. It is more like the one on Sossaman, by the golf course. It is a full-blown, it looks like a traditional traffic signal. There's going to be a signal pole and then a mast arm that hangs over the roadway. The signal indications are just a little bit different than your traditional traffic signal. It goes into a cautionary blinking, and then it will go solid red, heads, meaning stop. And then it will have the next phase, which is a blinking red, and a blinking red means stop, and you're able to proceed if the crosswalk is clear as a driver. So that is what a pedestrian hybrid beacon is. I have a brochure if anyone's interested. We will be coordinating with the school, obviously, ahead of that installation to help partner with them, as they will still have a crossing guard or crossing guards that will be at that intersection to help push the button, activate it, and help the children across the street. But that is the difference. The other devices that are out in Eastmark, we have what's called rectangular rapid flashing beacons, which is a mouthful, so we call them RRFBs. Inspirion and Kinetic, right behind us, is an RRFB. So that is a pedestrian actuated button, meaning a pedestrian can go up there, push the button, and it will activate the blinking lights. It's really just an enhancement to the warning signs that are out there.
Same as the one on Everton?
Same as the one as on Everton. There's also one on Point 22 by the skate park. There's two on Inspirion north of Point 22 by the park. And I think I have all of them. If I don't, they're on that map over there. There's a symbol for all the traffic signals, RFBs in the area here. But that is the difference. The way that we decipher which device is appropriate for the crossing depends on a lot of things, but it's mostly tied to the traffic volumes of that street, the recorded speeds or the traffic characteristics on that street, who's using the crosswalk. Obviously the one here being used by students every day of the school year is a huge component, what the age of those children are, and just the overall use throughout the day. So there's a lot of different things that go into determining what is the best enhancement or the needed enhancement at a specific crosswalk.
Can you talk about the speed camera?
The speed cameras, yes. So photos, we call them photo safety cameras. That is a program that is actually managed by the Mesa Police Department. The Mesa Transportation Department, we're a partner with them, obviously, in helping them determine where cameras may be helpful based on crash statistics or recorded speed studies that we've done. There is a plan to install photo safety cameras out on Ray Road adjacent to Eastmark High School. That will reinforce the 35 mile per hour wind flashing signs that are out there along that corridor. I'm not sure what the anticipated timeline on that is. Mesa Police Department might have a little bit more information on it, but I know that it is a planned addition to the photo safety infrastructure throughout the city. Those, to my knowledge, will be speed cameras, solely focused on speeds. And throughout the city, we have a combination of speed cameras versus red light cameras, and there are some cameras that actually do both. So
that camera, whatever we just call it, that's at Compass and Ray, or where is that going to be?
that's a great question. The specific location of it has not yet been determined, but my view on it is it'll likely be kind of right in front of the school. Not specifically, to my knowledge, at the intersection itself. Again, I believe that it's just going to be a speed camera focused on reinforcing the 35 mile per hour speed limit when flashing, 45 miles per hour outside of when it's flashing.
What triggered your decision to put some of those temporary speed monitoring devices that tell you you're going 45 miles an hour, temporary ones versus when you might put a permanent one in?
Sure, yeah, that's a good question too. The temporary trailers that you're describing are actually another program that's managed by our police department in the traffic unit. Sometimes they're just getting those requests, I think, sent to them. Sometimes they're getting those requests through coordination with our department, because we've gone out, we've done a speed study. We have noticed that there have been some elevated speeds, and they'll go place the trailers. A lot of the times, those are being directed and placed based on residents requesting them, resident feedback.
I have a link for you to request. The more you talk, the more we're going to get responses. So
Yep.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, that's okay. And so then the permanent ones that we've done a lot of studies, because we call them driver speed feedback signs. Again, it's another weird term, but we have an acronym for it, and that's a DSFS, a driver speed feedback sign. And we have them throughout the city. We've used them on arterial roads, collector roads, residential local roads, and streets, and with streets with different characteristics. We've done a lot of speed studies to show the effectiveness of them. And on arterial streets, the effectiveness is not great. On the more collector residential streets with certain characteristics, they have been proven to be somewhat effective at lowering the speed limits. But the average speed reduction that we see with those dynamic signs is usually around 2 to 3 miles per hour.
I do want to know, I love the questions, but just so we can make sure that everybody gets through the topics that they want to make sure we share, if you have questions that pop up, write them on your question cards, and we'll get them all at the end.
I only have one more question, and then it's all yours. Let's talk about what we do when we see something that needs police attention. So 911's obvious, right, to all of us for an emergency. But what about when it's not an emergency and it's young e-bike drivers terrorizing the neighborhood? Other than me texting you, what do you want us to do?
This is a good topic. Obviously, if there's an emergency and something's going on, you can always give us a call at 911. There's 3 main reasons why to utilize 911. Do you guys know what those 3 reasons are? So life-threatening.
I got stop, drop, and roll. That's all that's going through my head.
Fire. What's the last one? That's crime in progress, right? So those are the 3 reasons to call 911. We kind of go through some scenarios of like, let's say you come home late at night, eating dinner, and you come home and you notice your front door is kicked open. Is that a 911 call?
Yes.
Yes, because you don't know if there's someone inside your house, right? Let's say if you wake up the next morning and your window is bashed to your car. Is that a 911 call?
No.
No, unless the guy's sleeping in the back seat, right? There's a crime that already happened and you can call the non-emergency number and we can come take the report. So for an example, let's say you're out at the park and some kids on e-bikes start ripping through the grass, causing some issues or a disturbance in the neighborhood. What we'd like you to do is give us a call at our non-emergency number, which is
It's on the back of your fancy map here, too.
it's just 480-644-2211. That's our non-emergency number. A call will be placed and it will come across to our computer. And if there's not priority calls in front of that, an officer should be able to take that call and respond. You can, if you want to put your name on there and a phone number that officer or detective can call you at to get a better location or best assess the situation, we recommend that. Lots of the time I respond to these calls and I look up and I tell our call operator, I'm like, hey, you can hang out with that person. I actually want to call them directly because I'm the one that's responding and I'm going to be there in 30 seconds. And I'd rather just talk to them directly on the phone and we can resolve the issue. So those are some good little key points there.
Excellent.
So crime in progress can mean a lot of things. And traffic activity can rise to the level of criminal behavior in certain circumstances. If you see somebody that you know is clearly impaired, please call 911. If you see, in the case of like these e-bike gangs that we deal with sometimes, because we do deal with them. There was a group at the Superstition golf course that would ride in circles around the guys on golf carts and throw things at them, and then take off back to Gilbert. That
It's
kind
like
of
Karate
activity
Kid. That's how I feel
would be
sometimes.
Also a 911 call. If there's confrontation happening, people are getting ready to fight, people are getting angry, that would also be a 911 call. If it's kids just being inconsiderate, ripping through the park, not listening, please call non-emergency. There is an extra patrol request that we can put in, but I can tell you right now, what we want to see is we want to see awareness being brought to our patrol officers that work our various shifts, and nothing brings more awareness than seeing all those calls on the board for the same thing in the same areas. That tells them, hey, down there, e-bikes are a problem. And so knowledge is, because we have that huge area to cover, and knowing where those things are happening, knowing the intersections they're happening at, reinforcing that is going to be huge in helping us to know where to focus our efforts. So that would be my number one recommendation, is if you see behavior that's unsafe or nuisance, I guess I would say, please call us. Call non-emergency.
When I started going down this avenue with these gentlemen, there's not a lot of data in our neighborhood because no one's reporting anything. And so if you've been watching any of my shenanigans on our Eastmark page, I've been pushing the traffic enforcement request and do this and do that. And it's really because when I call Ryan and say, hey, we have a problem, and he's like, there's been no accidents reported in this area. That's not happening, right? It doesn't exist unless it's recorded. Or we call the commander and say, we have a problem, and the police commander is like, there's been nothing reported at all. But we all know that that's not the reality of it. But everyone waits for someone else to call and to do it. So I would encourage all of you to, I have that non-emergency phone number in my phone, and I just kept it there, and I've called it a few times, and they show up really quickly, and then they actually do call back. So you have to tell dispatch that you want to call back, but it does work. Yeah.
I know that I don't have my card's not been drawn, but I did that and nobody came, nobody responded. All we got were texts back saying have somebody there in such and such time. Kept getting
Receiving
texts all
texts.
night, and nobody ever showed up. And then I finally got another text said that we can't make it. So
Interesting.
to say nobody's reporting it, I
I,
don't buy that.
I can't respond to that. I don't know, but it's worked for me. It's worked for me a few times, and so I have a lot of confidence in it. And I'll let them talk to it, but my guess is that the officers were busy.
The biggest thing is
I
you
don't
need
know.
to make sure to ask for contact from the officers. Because a lot of the times, so we, again, and I've said this a million times now, but because our area is so big, there's certain times during the day that our calls peak. Usually kind of mid to early evening, our district can go what they call phase 1, meaning officers are not allowed to do anything proactive because there's too many fires to put out in too many different spots. And a lot of times it's when we get these calls will come in, and we know we're going to a call about e-bikes in the park 2 hours later that we're probably not going to find anybody in the park. But we still go out there, or they should be going out there. If they're not going out there, there would be a problem. We're still going out there, and if there's nobody there and it says no RP contact, most of our officers are just going to clear the call out and go back on their way. There are times when our supervisors, and we've had to address this at different points, our supervisors, if it is really, it's been a hectic day and we've been completely slammed and it's clear that there's not going to be anybody left, that we've had to cancel calls. That could be why you would get a text back like that. I can't say for sure. I would have to know the specifics of the call and I'd have to look it up. But generally speaking, the best way to make sure that you get feedback is to make sure you ask for officer contact and insist on officer contact.
Yeah, because we were actually like afraid they just all 7 of them, like a game, and they had already a verbal. It was bad.
If they're being, and that's what I say, if they're being confrontational, because we've had it where they're super confrontational, call 911. That's at that point, the way it's going to be dispatched, if there's an active confrontation, is the same across the board. They're going to send an officer immediately, because with active confrontations, the chance of a crime occurring, if we don't get there, goes way up. Now, if there was a confrontation and you guys are now separated, that'll still be non-emergency, but if you guys are actively screaming at each other in the park, well, please don't scream at each other. If you can walk away, do that. But if they're actively being confrontational, you're having these issues, that's a 911 call. That being said, that comes with that asterisk of please don't go out and try to start fights with all these groups of kids and then call 911 and be like, there's a confrontation.
And they're still children. Yeah,
recognize that they are still children. They're still teenagers. They're still learning. Parents are learning. Everybody's learning. And that's kind of the way that we're going with it right now, is if we can talk to the parents and we can talk to the kids and we can have good feedback, then that's where we like to leave it. But if we have the groups that are like, that's a joke, you guys aren't serious about that, then we start writing tickets.
yeah. And they're not all good eggs, and I totally am with you on that. But I think most people want to do the right thing. They just don't have all the information just yet. But we have resources. So if you make a call to non-emergency and they don't show up, I'll call Brian.
We can always dig it down.
I called,
How long ago was it?
June 25th at 7:41 p.m. and then finally I got multiple texts, and then the final one at 9:59 saying that they couldn't find anything. Well, of course not, because
It's
that's
2 hours
2
later.
and
Yeah.
Was it a different person that texted you?
it was an auto number. It was automated.
I didn't even know
Okay.
they did that.
Yeah.
I didn't, to
And
be honest,
the person I spoke to, I mean, I was very detailed with the comments that the kids, the boy kid.
I'll talk to you afterward. I'll look through that reference number and see if I can just figure out what happened for you.
Yeah.
Because when you're on the sidewalk and you're walking and you have these, I don't care if they're kids, teenagers, whatever, riding on the sidewalk towards you, you feel scared.
Yeah, I agree with you.
There's 7 of them coming towards you.
I agree.
Yeah,
To me,
absolutely.
that's an emergency. I called non-emergency, but like if I feel in danger, that puts a whole different.
And that's something that
puts
we've
it in a
always,
different bubble.
I always
I
tell
agree.
people, don't overthink it. If you feel unsafe, call 911. If it's not a 911 worthy call, our operator will transfer it. But if you feel unsafe, that's always been one of my bench tests. Don't overthink it, just call.
I've been experimenting recently. I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to anyway. I walk my dog every morning around the time of school, and this week school has started, and there's been a lot of kids doubled up on scooters and on the bikes, and they're all on the sidewalks, and I've just been kind of taking up more space than I normally would and not getting out of the way, and it's like forcing that, what's the word you use, the horizontal deflection. Like I'm forcing, and the other day I made this doubled up 2 girls on an e-scooter. I'm like, I'm gonna end up on Facebook, but I'm trying to squeeze it a little bit too, just to force them to feel a little discomfort, because that's how I feel when they come blasting at me on the sidewalk. So I feel that completely. My children ride bicycles, and they've told me several times they've been blasted off the road by kids on e-bikes, and I hear you completely, and I feel it too, both for my kids, for myself, for anybody who's walking around here. It's part of what's awesome about Eastmark. Like I literally am what is the slogan? The live, work, play. Like I work in this, I don't ever leave Eastmark, like ever. My kids go to school here, I live here, I work in here. I don't ever go anywhere. So I feel very violated when that happens. So I share your concern. I also think like, God, I hope it's not my kid that's doing it. I mean, all that stuff runs through your head because I can't be everywhere with them. All right, let's go with your questions and see what we got here.
Anybody else have one?
I
Yes, does
also
anyone
I
else
just want to
have?
touch base on that too. Yeah, when we make bike stops on the sidewalk, I advise them as well. This is a sidewalk. This is where people walk,
I didn't hear
right?
the first part of what? I didn't hear the first.
So like if I make a subject stop on
Oh.
a subject on a bike on a sidewalk, I'm like, okay, this is a sidewalk. This is where people walk. But as a reasonable officer as well, like if I have my 13-year-old son riding a bike, I'd rather him be on the sidewalk than in a bike lane farther away from cars. And so I get where you're saying, like, you understand, like, if it was your kid.
Yeah.
But with on the motorized bikes, like,
That's-
coming
It's
fast
so
on the
scary.
sidewalk at 20 miles an hour, you're like, whoa. Like,
Yeah,
Only 20?
yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Reasonable
Scary.
reasonable officer
Sustained
that-
speed at that level too. It's not like they're just pedaling fast.
Completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I don't mind sharing the sidewalk with the bicycle. I'd rather they be on, but they're so much courteous too. They're a different level than these
Yeah.
e-bikers. They come up to you yelling behind you, no brakes, no brakes. They want to freak you out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm over it. Like I don't even care what happens anymore to them because I don't care. They're causing these problems. We can't even walk and be safe. It's horrible. It
Yeah.
really is. Yeah, I don't use any of the other amenities here at Eastmark, but I do walk like 6 miles a day, and I don't even feel safe anymore.
Yeah, it's extreme. I agree with you.
It's extreme.
It is.
It really is.
And it's an affluent neighborhood, and there's a lot of access, and we are very privileged to live in such an amazing community, and that comes with toys that I think maybe some people aren't prepared for maturity or age-wise. But so I share your concern. That's why we're here, and that's what we're trying to do. So, all right, you go.
Yes, so thank you everybody who submitted your questions ahead of time. I see we've got another one. Several of these questions all kind of are along the same line, so I'm going to combine a couple of your guys' questions just into one, and I'm sure you guys know exactly what it's going to be. So when it comes to e-bikes and the danger they present with the speeds or multiple people all going at the same time, or taking up streets and blocking the roadways, what is being done or is planned to be done to enforce the laws on those e-bikes when it happens?
So again, what is being done is we stop and we've arrested kids, we have cited kids, we've cited parents, we've impounded bikes, but that happens again from Germain to Salt River, because the problem lies from Germain to the Salt River. We've only usually got about 15-ish officers per shift at any given time, and that also includes us dealing with, family fights, traffic accidents, anything that might come out, any other type of crime that might come out. What we're really excited about is that split, that cutting in half of our responsibilities so that the officers that work this area can focus on that everything south of Southern, south of the 60, we can get more into these communities. I'm not going to say that the problem will go away overnight. Sometimes we'll do special enforcement projects and the problem will be driven down for a time, and then when we kind of ease up to go somewhere else, it comes back. Our long-term solution, and what everybody's long-term solution to this really we're looking at, is parental education and getting the parents on board, because if the tools were not provided, we wouldn't have the issues. And the big problem that we have too is, you guys have probably seen it, I know I've seen it in this neighborhood, is you'll have one kid that his parents bought him the $5,000 Suron, but the other kid's parents are like, I'm not going to pay for that, so they should go pick up a cheap 125cc dirt bike off Craigslist, and then the third kid gets just a mini bike from Tractor Supply, and then they're all just buzzing down the road.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why parents are letting that happen. I don't get it. I've got 4 kids of my own. I understand you want them to be able to have fun, but he was on a double fatality with one of those mini bikes not too long ago. It's something that we're really trying to push out. At the end of the day, yeah, what's being done is we will write tickets, we'll impound bikes, we'll cite parents for contributing to the delinquency of a minor under certain circumstances. There's a whole myriad of laws we can use, but every situation is case by case. Again, when we have one kid that stops and we have 3 kids that run, if we cite the one kid that stops, a lot of times what he's realizing is, shoulda run, shoulda run. And that's not the message that we want to reinforce.
That's true.
So we have, and you guys have probably seen it if you've been around for a little while, we have other tactics that we use. We have a decoy car. Trying to get it back. We had to give it to our SRO unit, but we had it on Everton Terrace for a little while. If you ever saw that Chevy Caprice that was hiding there, we had a dummy in it and everything. We also deploy the speed trailers. We also have pole cameras that we sometimes use. We also have these trailer cameras that we sometimes use. We have a lot of resources. We just have to, we're constantly moving them around to cover for different problems. And so again, that's why us as community action officers, right now we cover the entire district, but when the district gets cut in half, the north half gets 2 of their own officers, meaning that our area of responsibility literally gets cut in half, meaning we can do double the amount of work in this area that we were doing before, and that's going to go for a lot of our patrol officers as well. I don't think that there's going to be the same, they're going to allocate some of that, so it's going to split a little bit, but those numbers should still go up.
Is it already happened, your district split?
August 11th.
August 11th.
So, on the same note, I'd like to know what you want residents to do in this situation. Twice in the last week, I've been driving and have encountered our local e-bike gang. Once on Chrisman coming, back way through, kind of between kids and that, and they were 1.5 lanes wide. Could care less. They've now masked themselves.
Just real quick, how long has this, I saw the picture from yesterday or 2 days ago. How long has that particular issue been occurring?
So that one was this weekend.
It's been growing, I'd say, for the last couple months.
And
But they're like 20 deep now at this point.
So there was that one, and then a couple days ago it was a minor group. They waited for the light to change, but then they dragged and didn't go, like they were purposely stopping traffic.
Do we know?
So my point is, like, I'm in the car, I've got kids that I'd love to be able to say I could call right then and there, but what do you want us to, I want to answer your questions on what the group is, but what do you want us to do? Because by the time I get to a safe spot to call you,
they're gone.
It's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
And that's been a catch-22. I mean, it will be a catch-22. If you have, go along the same lines of these street racers, if they're taking over the roadway, they're obstructing the normal movement of traffic. There's cars backing up. They don't care. It's one thing if there's the kind of that, like I call it I know it's not minor, but it's just a short inconvenience. It's one car. It takes 30 seconds and it's on. That might not be a 911 call, but if you've got a group that's actively, like that's what they're trying to do, is interfere with traffic, because we do have that sometimes, same as the kids who used to throw rocks at cars, oranges at cars. But if you have something like that, that would be a 911 call. If you can't do it if you can't pull over, I will tell you this. So me and John were part of the community action team. We dealt with the Superstition gang back in 2023. That is something that we would do. Particularly, we would start to investigate and try to find out who the individuals are. through Facebook, through whatever means we can, through shaking one kid and be like, who are your friends?
I think if you surveyed this room, we could probably tell you who a few of them are.
Yeah, and we'll start to collect that information, because this is I've known about the e-bike problem, but again, when the really rowdy groups start to get brazen and start to be confrontational and start to cut off traffic and start to do what they were doing years ago, that's typically where we start going like door to door and be like, hey, does your kid have a bike? Is this what it looks like? Is this what he looks like? Well, this is what he's doing. And if he continues to do it, we're going to have a bigger problem than just a neighborhood issue.
It's escalating, and I've been reflecting on if some of the efforts that we're making are making it escalate. We talk about like putting in a U-turn sign. What does it do to traffic? Like there's this war starting between like you shouldn't be on bikes and then, oh, really watch us. And I feel that escalation bubbling. Maybe it has nothing to do with it, but it definitely seems like, and the summer, right? That's part of it too. But I definitely feel like since May, June, this week has felt heavy with the traffic but school started Monday. So.
And we do, so just so everybody knows in the room, we have been actively working on reducing all kinds of crime involving juveniles now for a couple of years. But we put together summer safety programs every year. We're putting together other basically mandatory enforcement projects for certain types of crimes being committed by juveniles. But typically we see that stuff spike during summer break and then wean off when school starts, when things get busy, when they've got homework assignments and projects and sports and things like that. So there is that little bit of relief, but again, I call it a gang. It is a gang. It is a gang, but that's something that me and my partner will look into specifically for this area, because those are things that require a little bit more than what our patrol officers have time to deal with in terms of identifying the network of kids and starting to do real enforcement.
I have pictures and videos.
Yeah, so we'll get with you guys afterward to start that process up. Again, I found out about this activity like 2 days ago, but that's something that we'll start working on.
I have just a real quick question. We moved to Arizona. We were here for about a month, and we were told to get cameras installed in the front and rear of the car, because when anybody's in an accident, everybody lies.
Yeah, good advice.
If you run across something like that and you have a camera in your car, that just records, is that anything you can use?
It depends. Depends on it. So yeah, let's say that
Without getting confrontational or everything, you've got it all on a camera.
Yeah, let's say that you've got a gigantic group that is just in the middle of the roadway. They're not getting out of the way for cars, and you do call. You can say you've got video. What I'm going to end up doing at this point, just because of that type of behavior, is I'm probably going to go around to our briefings and talk to our patrol officers and have them start to redirect those calls back to me and John, and then we would probably come and reach out for that video. Our goal is to identify the kids, identify who's supposed to be taking care of them, and make contact with those people and start to create some very assertive education. So yes and no. It just depends on the footage and what we're looking at for the footage.
We'll just give you a heads up if you're looking for that type of
Descriptions.
Descriptions, yeah.
So this is why if I may interject.
Absolutely.
So this is why these community conversations are important. What I think would be a good idea is to coordinate with the real-time crime center and have them start a file on that, so who has the cameras in their car?
Yeah.
Most people. Who has the Tesla?
Really?
Oh my God.
None of you in here are the Tesla.
They're everywhere.
Not since he ran for president.
Whether it's a Tesla or anything else, you're coming with cameras to assist. And like on my car, I could just hit a button and start recording. So to your question, if you have something that happens like that, hit the record button if you have that kind of a thing. Watch it, and what I'd like to see us do is maybe have the real-time crime center start a file on that they can share with you, and what they would do then is just collect that information, and then we would have video files. Doesn't mean we could act on it immediately. However, so a real-time crime center is exactly what it sounds like. It can monitor a lot of places. It doesn't have a lot of access out this way. So mostly what it's monitoring are business cameras for those who sign up to the program, and our street cameras. So when you see all the street cameras on there, Those street cameras can be monitored by the real-time crime center, so if an incident goes down in the neighborhood, those cameras can come up live, and that information can be fed both video and by radio to our officers responding. In addition, we have a drone program that's operating on the west side right now. Those are hooked up to the real-time crime center.
Cool.
So it's eyes on the ground much faster than we can get police officers there. But they have an excellent rate for solving crime.
Could they do something like that in Eastmark Park for all these little hooligans that are going around?
So as we,
Could
that's a
they
good
have-
question. So as
Could
we,
they have cameras at each of the entrances and kind of monitor for a week on and see how many?
yeah, we don't have cameras yet, but as those expand into the park, because adding them to the parks is coming. Again, most of this is starting on the west side, just because the west side is where most of the crime is.
Yeah.
So as it comes out this direction, we're gonna be adding some cameras out here. One place I wanna add the cameras is on that tunnel underneath the.
Yeah.
That's where they go.
Yeah.
When they're helicopters
Correct.
looking for them, that's exactly
Yeah.
where they go, and they know it. And they're
Well,
securely-
it's also a pinch point potentially, so I'm trying to work on getting a camera put under there, so we'd be able to access that, but the street cameras aren't hooked up to that system.
Yeah.
So if we get a file, pretend it won't be live, but to be able to turn in those videos and have a file, and then we can start, you guys, as you do your detective work, and start working through those, and start picking out who's doing most of the trouble, and that will be just more evidence that potentially we can collect, so we can talk, I'll talk to the commander too about that.
Absolutely, that'd be awesome. One more thing that we do have, and right now it's a very limited resource because one of ours broke. I don't know if you guys have seen them anywhere in Mesa. We have what we call overt cameras. They're trailers that we can pull, and they've got a mast that goes up at 25, 30 feet, and it gives it patches into our real-time crime center, so our detectives can actively monitor and pan and tilt and zoom the cameras. And we will use those in problem areas because we can move them around. We just had one that just had a complete failure, and we only had 2 for our district. So we're running short on them, but as we kind of pick up this, I foresee that we probably will utilize that, probably in the park, just until we can get the problem under control, and then it's we have that resource, and we'll probably end up using it, but we'll talk to our higher ups about that as well.
Cool.
Awesome. We have one more question.
That whole stack was about that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But one more question. We had a couple on ages, which I know are addressed on that sheet, which is super helpful. And I know you said the laws on e-bikes are catching up, but one specific question that came up twice is, what are rules or laws for multiple riders on a single e-bike or scooter, if there are any?
That was actually a question that I had when you guys were talking. So I don't want to tell you one thing or another right now. I don't know for sure.
I looked it up.
Do you know what it is?
Yeah, it's only one rider, unless it's like has 2 seats and it's intentional. But one on, I looked up in the Mesa City Code a couple days ago because there was a debate about it.
There's like pegs on the bike, and you see the other kid on the pegs.
Yeah.
Technically for city code, that's not allowed.
But that's for bicycles, that's for scooters, that's for, like, if there's one seat for one butt, it's a one person thing. If it's like a tandem bike, then 2 people can go on it. But
when you have the electric bike and they have the push scooter where they hold on and
yeah.
drag them.
Yeah, we're going to call that unsafe.
You know,
I've seen that not work out well in the past.
I had a conversation with a mother the other day who said, like, I think after my shaming Facebook post the other night, she said, I'm really sorry I don't go. My kids don't have e-bikes, so I thought it's other people's parenting choices. But I'll leave this thought in your head. Our kids are going to do what they see other kids get away with. And so my 10-year-old's going to see that 15-year-old do that and think, no one stopped him, I can do it. And it's that monkey see, monkey do behavior. We all have it. It's part of human nature. And I think that's what we have to stand up as a community and say, like, it's not safe, it's against the law, and we won't tolerate it. But the efforts that you can help us with, I mean, look, we don't want to spend police time on kids on scooters, but we do want your help with the gangs, because that's a problem that's going to escalate and continue, but having resources for all of that is really helpful.
One of my questions.
I like to add another flip side is what scares me is I don't want to hurt any of these kids.
Yeah.
If I'm coming back out of my driveway and they're zooming on those motorcycles,
Yeah.
that's what scares me.
I totally agree. My 14 and a half year old is going to get a permit in a year. And I thought, how am I ever going to teach her to drive here? Like, I'm scared to drive here. It's scary for sure.
It can be very scary in the morning sometimes.
Yes.
Okay, you have your AirPods, you're not listening, and you're whipping by, and I'm
Yeah.
tired. It's 8, you're A to B.
Yeah.
Right, and they're like, this is so scary. I don't want to hit nobody, and
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying about the walking, but just me as a driver.
Yeah.
I see this. Like,
I've witnessed.
everybody. It's not just you have a kid or if you don't have a kid.
Yep.
You don't want to hurt nobody.
I like when they're checking their texts are going pretty
Oh,
fast.
I know.
So,
Really?
an interesting idea.
There's a governor on it.
So I love what Officer Bellows and Forrest have told us tonight, 'cause it's stuff that I had no clue. Let's get with comms.
Yep.
I think a minute long, what you just told,
Yeah.
hey, if you're looking to buy this, that's a motorcycle.
Yeah.
These are the things. Pamphlets are great, but I'm looking at this and I'm even a little confused.
Me too.
by yes, no. The assembly's kind of part of also communications, so I'd love to connect us
Yes.
and have you do just a little
Yeah,
video
absolutely.
PSA that we can send out, and that way
I'd
it
say,
gets to all the parents who are. I think most parents want to do the right thing,
Yeah.
but I think we're all overstimulated and activated, and
Yeah.
it's I'm not thinking I'm going to look this up because my kid wants that, and
There's
that's what it's me, but that's the.
Mhm.
So-
Doesn't do it like The Office, you know, the Office one where he's like, the compact cars go in the park.
Yeah. That's all this gentleman right here.
yeah, let's get John to do it.
Like the red.
Matt, the same thing with the city on the beacon that's going to go in would be really great for comms too, because I think that signal's great, but if no one knows how to use it, what are we going to
We'll
do?
be happy to do those
Yeah.
as much as you need, and I'll offer that up. I know you're on your third commander now in recent times, so haven't had a chance to meet her yet, but if there's any of those PSAs that you want to get out, connect us. We will get you a platform.
And I think that, like I said, we're going to work with, it was our commander's directive actually, that we work with our public information office to create something that we can distribute. So yeah, I think we'll connect with you on that. But to your point back there, like I ride a motorcycle, I ride my bike every day. I love riding my motorcycle. It's the way that I deconflict my brain. But when I decided I wanted to ride, I took it very seriously. I looked up everything. I looked up all the statistics, what kills people, what doesn't kill people, all these different things. And I took it, my wife rides as well, and we went through all these safety classes. And you learn all of these things, you learn all of these ways that things can go wrong. And that's my big problem, is that you got kids that are getting on motorcycles with not a thought in the world besides point A, point B,
Wheelies.
That's
all I think about.
And that's our big problem. That's why we're really trying to push out the educational aspect of, hey, if it goes more than 25 miles an hour and it does not have pedals, I mean, it talks about like motor-driven cycles, and there's a couple different designations in there, but if you look at it, you'll realize it's the same requirements for all of them. If they don't have pedals and they go more than 25, they're a motorcycle. And the reason is because above those speeds, and if they don't know what they're doing, they're untrained, that can go really bad really fast. So that's our primary focus, is curbing that kind of behavior, because we've seen it. It's already across the city. We've seen accident after accident, and they're never pretty.
Yeah,
We just need to get a ban.
It's a
That's
big
it.
thing. I think that's very impactful. We look at crashes every single year in our department, and we partner with the traffic division in Mesa PD. We have annual statistics that we put out every single year. If you're interested, you can find them online. But over the past 4 years, there's a very, very clear and stark trend, and that is that our fatalities that are happening on Mesa roadways are increasing very starkly, very clearly for motorcyclists. And that includes a lot of these motorcycle, again, that definition
Toys.
is pretty blurry, right? It includes a lot of those. In 2024, we had 34 fatalities on Mesa roadways that were deemed, traffic crashes that resulted in a fatality. 34. I think the number was 16 of them were motorcyclists.
Oh.
That's almost half of the fatalities in a very, very large city were motorcyclists. So I mean, that's a very stark and I think humbling statistic. And you can go back again in 2023, 2022, 2021, back to 2020, and you'll see that proportion of those that are involved in fatal crashes, motorcyclists are increasing.
So what's gonna happen when these kids on e-bikes are riding down Point 22, popping wheelies, whatever, and someone in a car hits them? You know, so
We've had, I mean, we had one Ellsworth and just north of Guadalupe a couple weeks ago. We break down the accident, what occurred, who committed what violation. Lots of the times we find that the motorcycle rider was in violation. If you're asking, like, if somebody dies or somebody gets seriously injured,
nobody wants to
the
hurt
way that the
anybody,
law
but-
looks at it, if somebody's committing a criminal act, meaning I'm going 80 miles an hour in a 25 on a residential street and a kid rides out in front of me and I hit him, they're going to charge me with manslaughter. You're going to jail for that. Or your DUI.
Because you're speeding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you're committing a criminal act.
Yeah.
Or your DUI or your reckless driving. If it's civil act, let's say I blow a red light because I thought I was going to make it, but I'm not really speeding, and I hit somebody and injure somebody, we leave that, we consider those accidents. They're not accidents, they're still violations of the law, but they're accidental. There was no criminal intention or there was no criminal negligence or recklessness. It was just you didn't perceive something, you didn't do the right thing in time, but you weren't intoxicated, you weren't doing anything that clearly you should know is dangerous. And so that's the way we look at it with the fatalities and stuff too. If we have a motorcycle accident where the motorcycle turns left in front of a car and the car hits them and the car was just going through a green light, you know, it's a bad day for everybody, but we don't look at it as being criminal in any element.
I was
talking about like us driving down, law-abiding citizens driving down Point 22, and these kids, these e-bike gangs going back and forth like this, and you clip a kid, or they come up too close to you, and you're going the speed limit, not doing anything wrong, and you hit the kid.
Or you don't see when they don't
Or you
have
don't see-
lights.
they don't
Yeah,
have
it's going to be a bad day all the way around. I'll just share a personal experience. I was involved in an accident where a bicycle and my car got into an accident. The kid hit me. I called the police because it scared the shit out of me and I wanted to make sure everything was okay. And the kid got a ticket because he was the one that caused the accident. I could have gotten it. I don't know. I was living in California at the time, but it's so circumstantial on
It just depends on
all of that.
We'll come out and investigate it as a collision, and then whether or not somebody receives a citation is whether or not we can prove somebody, basically the first harmful act, meaning the first person that did something wrong that resulted in the collision happening.
I don't think any of us want to be in that position where we're riding along and we know the rules, we're abiding by the rules, but the kids on the e-bikes
Now,
are
just to
clueless.
throw out there so everybody knows, if you're riding along and you see a kid and you're like, that would be criminal.
You can't do that, okay?
We would call that aggravated assault.
You have a-
Throw that out there.
I haven't hit anybody yet.
So, but yeah, in
But
a
it
normal,
is scary though, because
yeah.
you know, they get close, they get close.
Yeah,
to
and
you.
if you're driving and doing everything that you're supposed to and somebody clips you, again, we're going to investigate it as a collision, but it's not going to be a criminal element. It's not going to be criminal. It's not going to be a criminal thing in that circumstance.
Okay, so we have Julie's question. I have one more on e-bikes, and then we're going to transition over to Ryan because we have a lot of infrastructure questions.
At the same rate, when you're like, you're not gonna tailgate a semi-truck, you know you're gonna stay back. So if you see these kids out there in their little scooter gang or bike gang, you wanna tail back farther so you don't get close to them. So what happens if one of them trips over a rock and biffs it? Like,
Yeah.
you be back a little at the same rate. I mean, things happen out on the road. We're close to home. Things happen when you're close to home.
Well, most accidents, I think, happen, right? Like a couple mile radius? Yeah, you're right.
No, I was on a fatality in Halloween of 2019 in front of Stapley High School, or Stapley Junior High, where a 12-year-old kid on a scooter on the sidewalk, fell just right into the roadway, and Jeep ran him over.
Oh my God.
All at the same time.
It's like my worst nightmare around here.
It does happen. So I would absolutely, anytime, and this goes for bikes, pedestrians, and congestion, anytime you got a lot of people starting to share our thoroughfares, slow down.
Yeah.
Even if the speed limit's 25, if 25 is too fast, go 20, go 15.
Yeah.
That is going to curb, and I know it's annoying because you're like, I shouldn't have to slow down because kids shouldn't be taking over the road, but at the end of the day, you guys are all trying to share, 20,000 residents trying to share 20 or 5 square miles.
Yeah.
There's going to be that congestion element sometimes, and we don't like to see bad things happen because of a little bit of impatience. That's one of the worst things that we
Can't take it back, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay. Along the lines of community education, specifically in schools, is there, I know you mentioned it, but is there a specific plan to have these handouts or speakers going to the schools to educate students and parents on e-bikes and the laws?
Our current plan is to work through our school resource officers in our high schools. We have school resource officers in most of our junior highs, but not all of them. But that's our go-to right now. Now, what that will actually look like is probably going to depend on the school and the individual circumstances of the school. But we have really good rapport with our SROs, and that's going to be our primary point of contact with the schools and getting that message out.
So I've personally met with all of the principals in, Eastmark High School, Sequoia, and Basis. The Mesa Police, Dawn goes to at least Eastmark High School. I think you guys might have one, sir. Silver Valley. I know they go to Basis. I know Mesa Fire goes there too. So they are going to the schools. I would like to see it more often. My kids have never once come home and said, the police were here today talking to us about this. So it's not happening enough, even if it is happening some. A couple weeks ago, I posted a template letter on the neighborhoods page saying, if you have school-age kids, please send this letter to your principal. I can send that to you if you're interested in that template, or just email yourself. But the louder you are, the more you request it, the more it's going to happen. And then it'll keep pushing. I don't like that one that's there because I don't speak police, but the graph is not super, civilian friendly, I think.
I think it's...
Yeah.
Pedal, no pedal. That was like the...
Totally.
That is the biggest...
Oh, yeah.
E-bikes actually have pedals, they just don't.
So the lower class e-bikes, the ones that are 25 miles an hour and below, typically have pedals, and typically we treat those as bicycles. We could, again, hammer our fists and jam up all the kids that are under 16 riding them if they committed a violation because it's a secondary violation. But so it just for everyone's knowledge too, ARS, Arizona Revised Statutes, in the very, very, very beginning, before it gets into the specifics of the laws, it says there's what's called the rules of construction. And what it basically says is these laws are intended to be interpreted in a way that promotes justice and safety, and not always to the letter of the law in every circumstance. And that's not to say that we don't use the letter of the law, but the point is to promote safety and not to, there's a lot of e-bikes that I think that, again, the law hasn't quite caught up with the technology. There's lots of e-bikes that are pretty well safe and just a little bit motor assisted if you're riding them correctly. That aren't really any faster than bicycles. And those ones, if they're a bike that just is, it's a assisted bike, you don't have to pedal it, but you're not going any faster than you could go on a bicycle. We're typically not going to spend a whole ton of time on enforcement in those cases when we've got the Surons and the mini bikes and the dirt bikes and those things to deal with. Mm-hmm. So again, the pedal and 25 mile an hour is a good standard. Again, there's a lot of little nuances between all of them, but that's usually where we draw the line between motorcycle versus e-bike, versus bike.
Did you have a follow-up about that? All right, I lied. There's one more question, but I don't think it'll take too long, and it's not about e-bikes. If a school bus stops and you are going the opposite direction on a divided road, do you also have to stop when their lights are on?
Yes.
Resounding yes.
Okay, hold on. So there was a whole...
Does divided mean there's a median? Was that what the question was? So if there's a median and you're on the opposite
I will
side.
double check that, but
A raised median.
A raised median?
Over 20 feet
Well,
wide or 8 feet.
Yeah.
I'll double check that, but you have to understand where school buses stop, they're picking up all the kids in a geographic area. Those kids may live on either side of the roadway. So my recommendation to anybody would just be to stop.
Yeah.
Again, because you don't know, even if the law does say, well, if there's a raised median, if there's palm trees in there, you don't have to stop. Even if that's the case, again, that case that I had back in 2019, you don't know when a first grader, second grader who has no clue what's going on is just going to jet from one side of that bus to the other. If you see the lights and you see the stop sign, just stop. Doesn't take that long. That would
Totally.
be my recommendation to everybody. I'll double check real quick and I'll answer the question for sure before the end. Here I'll do a little bit of research, but common sense answer, just stop.
Yeah.
All right, now we're going to go over to Ryan. And I know you talked about a lot of these things. A lot of them are additions or things that we can add. So I'll start with one first. That's a little bit more general. Would it help to adjust speed limits to match the psychological feelings of the road? And this is Matt's question, so he might want to flesh it out a little bit.
But yeah, it dawned on me as Melissa started doing a lot of this. When you look at the speed limits around Eastmark and the way the roads were built, we want to do the right thing, but the roads all kind of start feeling different. Or like Ellsworth is a 50, Ray's 45, but Ray feels like it's much more of an open, wide road than Ellsworth. Point 22, there's no parking on the edges, there's like 2 stop signs, it's 35. It feels like it's typical 45 mile an hour road. Eastmark Parkway, yeah, I get it. Where the schools are, I should go 25, but the minute I cross point 22, that feels no different than Ray. And I know that it's all posted, but when you think about, and to my marketing side, like, look, I'm conditioned. I know when I'm on a road that feels like this is kind of what it is. And these limits are all over the place in the area, and the roads, just don't feel right. Like, and Everton's probably the one where I'm like, that's the one where everyone speeds, but it's the one that feels like I should be doing 15.
Yeah. Isn't that weird?
Because it's like this cavern of beautiful trees. So you've done the data, you talked about that, but I don't feel like it matches the way the roads were designed and how I've been conditioned to drive.
Yeah, and that's a huge component of how we're trying to design streets now versus back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, right? That is a huge piece of it. The goal is that we're creating self-reinforcing streets that give you that feeling of, I'm driving 35 and I feel a little uncomfortable, so I probably shouldn't be driving 35. And I think there are streets in this community that do that, especially in the residential short block, really tight streets. Again, these are really residential dense areas that I think it probably feels really uncomfortable to drive even 25 sometimes, right? I think it does a really good job. Yeah, there's some streets that probably could have been designed a little bit differently, absolutely, and we're still growing and learning and trying new things to do that. And there's a whole just array of different things that you can try to do to promote that. I will tell you that Ellsworth Road, the 50 mile per hour speed limit, pending council approval down the road, will go back down to 45. That is going to be our recommendation after the capital improvement project comes through from Germain to Ray in the near future. So that will eliminate that difference. I agree with you. Our arterials throughout our whole system should be fairly consistent, but a lot of it is based on the context of the roadway, meaning the land uses that line it, the amount of driveways, the amount of conflict points. Out here in East Mesa, there are conflict points, absolutely. But we have raised median on some of these roads. That eliminates conflict points. That eliminates the different unsafe movements that can happen, which a lot of them are left turns. The driveway density is a lot less, on Ray Road versus if you go drive University in West Mesa, right? All of those things play a factor. The context of the roadway, what is it supposed to serve? Who are the users of the roadway? What is lining it? What types of land uses are lining it? Those are all things that feed into how the speed limit is arrived at. I hear you. I think as you get into Eastmark, the intent is, I am now on Eastmark Parkway, I'm on Inspirion, I'm on Warner, coming into the community. I am now in a 35 mile per hour zone, given the context of I am within a residential community, there's crosswalks, there's a skate park, right? Like those things, there's a trail behind the sidewalk. That is the perception that we're trying to achieve. And then as you get into those residential streets, now I'm driving on a 30-foot wide street. That's clearly now I'm in a 25 zone. Like that is the intent. Yes, there could be some things that could be done differently, but absolutely.
Yeah.
And some of those make sense. I think I'm looking at point 22 from Signal Butte to Eastmark Parkway, and why is it not 45? Because when I do 35, I swear I'm going to get rear-ended.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
People drive it anyway.
because I'm actually fearful of getting pulled over. I'm like, look, I know it's between 2 and 4. This is that prime school time. I'm expecting a cop to pull out any moment. But after 4, I'm like, man, I'm doing 35 and everyone is blowing past doing 50. So,
Including the e-bikes.
so why,
Don's getting passed by the
you
e-bikes.
look at that and you say, look, maybe if we raised it the 5 or the 10, it would kind of now match what people are expecting, and it wouldn't be as dangerous as, hey, look, I'm the 35 guy who's literally getting tailed by the F750 who's angry that I'm doing the speed limit.
Yeah, sure. And generally speaking, at this point, kind of where our industry is and traffic safety being, I think, more prominent than it has been in the past decade prior to this, raising the speed limit to match operating speeds it's pretty uncommon, just to be honest with you. Again, I think the intent of that roadway is you come off of Signal Butte. I understand what you're saying, absolutely. The cross section is not much different than other arterials in the city. But again, we're entering this community. There's a shopping complex with a neighborhood on the other side that may generate people to cross the street. I think it's that intentional, we are going to lower the speed limit because we are entering a community. That's what's trying to be achieved. I understand where you're coming from. We have done speed studies on point 22. I'm sure we'll continue to do those things. But
What's your data say?
I do not see, the data says that the majority of the people in the most recent ones are driving above 40 miles per hour on point 22. But I do not see in the future us raising the speed limit on point 22. I see maybe strategies to help self-reinforce.
And I don't want to raise everything where, I'm just looking at it going and say, look, I get it. Right? It's counterintuitive to say raise the speed limit for safety, but at the same time, I would challenge anyone to spend a day out there and go, not a dang person is driving 35 because this is not a enter the street. It's not like Horn or some of those where it acts like Ray. Like it has that, the number of traffic, the people who are like zipping through. So figure out how to calm that and do that. I'd love to hear it.
Sure.
Because it is fast. I mean, we walk it every day.
Yeah.
So it's bad. I mean, I just hope to God that no car jumps the curb. But it's a nice walk because
it's a beautiful walk.
I don't know where else to go.
Anywhere walking in Eastmark is pretty.
Okay, and I know, Ryan, you mentioned some strategies, so if that's not common, what are certain strategies or things that could come up in the future that could help to kind of curb those things? And a couple things that were specifically mentioned, ramble strips or raised crosswalks in high pedestrian areas. Is that something where if speed studies show that consistently speed isn't slowing down and we need to address it, what is the likelihood of those things coming in the future?
Yeah, rumble strips, those are...
Sorry, you look like a
Yeah, that's good. I got the intent there. And those are usually used on more rural roadways along the edge line. If you cross over that edge line, like on I-10, you're gonna feel that, you're gonna hear it.
I was thinking more the raised ones, like when you're at the airport and you're about to turn and it's just like a little inch thing and it's just enough to let you know.
A mini speed bump.
Yeah, the little ones.
Yeah.
The little ones.
And typically we don't use those types of features within a neighborhood because of the noise. They are pretty noisy.
Yeah, I bet.
And with residential properties lining everywhere in here, that typically wouldn't be a strategy. But the other strategies, raised crosswalks, again, what we call curb bulb outs or curb extensions, which is physically narrowing the roadway by bringing the curb lines in. We talked about driver speed feedback signs. That's a strategy. Typically not a very, very large reduction in speeds, but it gives you that perception as a driver. As I'm driving, it's going to give me that feedback of what I actually am dynamically driving. Point 22 is a challenging one, but I think you've described it very well. The context west of Eastmark Parkway helps self-reinforce. You have crosswalks, you have a skate park, you have a fire station, you have a school.
Mm-hmm.
Those things help, right? They help the driver and the perception. Yes, maybe to the east, there could be other strategies that we could pursue in the future. I'm not sure what those could be, but things are
Police.
Things are possible.
That's our strategy is policemen.
Yeah.
Enforcement is component, for sure.
But you don't see it. I'm sorry, I just don't see them. I'm out there so much. And I rarely see a police officer out there in 22. Rarely.
I see them a lot.
Well,
The gang ran right by.
oh yeah, I did nothing.
What else you got, Peyton? We're gonna start losing people.
Yep, we got one more because we are at time, and I want to make sure that these lovely
See you
people who
soon.
had a full work day get to go home. There's one question that we're not going to have time for, so I will follow up, Soledad, on yours about element. But Tina had a question about your speed studies. Are they monitored by technology, or do humans go through that data?
Yeah,
Good one.
great question. When we conduct speed studies, we have a vendor that actually goes out and they place really small black rubber tubes across the roadway most of the time. And what those are called pneumatic tubes, and they're spaced at a certain distance, and as a tire hits one of them and then the other one, it gives the traveling speed based upon how far apart they are. That is one method. That's probably the most common method that we collect that speed data. And yes, it does get assessed by the vendor before it gets sent over to us, and then our staff assesses the data. And sure, there are times that we find anomalies, and we as human beings assess the data. There's also radar collected speed data that's occasionally used, and Mesa PD actually has some units that do that. It's a radar collected. It's not a tube physically in the street, but the tubes are the typical that you might see around the community from time to time. That is what it's doing, is collecting traffic volumes and or speeds.
Are they just car tires or e-bike tires or any tires or?
It is generally focused on vehicular tires, yes, but it will get motorcycles and stuff like that as well. It's possible to get the different classifications of cars as well, like a car versus a truck versus a semi-truck. There are capabilities of that. It's very, very advanced technology, but that's kind of the technology industry standard out there.
And this is all public information, yes? So I have a copy of the one that he did on Eastmark Parkway, and if anybody wants any of them, we just submit a request to the city, yeah?
Absolutely, sure.
So if you want it, you can get it. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you all for your questions, Soledad. I will follow up on yours as well, but I want to take a moment to thank everybody who is on our sofa for donating your time and your intelligence and your hard work. We really appreciate it. And we also want to thank all of you because, like Melissa mentioned, this is your community. You are the ones that are able to make the change. You are the ones that are passionate. You live here. And your active participation in learning about things and speaking up and sharing what you know and what you see is half of the work. And they would not be able to do anything that they do without you also partnering. So thank you so much. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. And let's give our speakers a round of applause.
You go to school bus answer?
Yeah, I do actually. So real quick, ARS 28857 governs school buses and stopping, and it basically says you have to stop for a school bus, and it gives 2 reasons why you would not have to stop for a school bus. It says the driver of a vehicle on a highway with separate roadways need not stop on meeting or passing a school bus that is 1 on a different roadway, or number 2 on a controlled access highway, and the school bus is stopped in a loading zone that is part of an adjacent to a highway and where pedestrians are not permitted to cross the roadway. And then it says, for the purpose of subsection E, which that is, a lane or group of lanes on either side of a 2-way left turn lane is not considered a separate roadway. So it's a little bit vague because it says on either side of a suicide lane is not considered a separate roadway, but it does not specifically say on either side of a raised median is considered a separate roadway. The way that I would interpret that is like point 22 has raised medians, right? So point 22 kind of goes through residential areas, and there's going to be kids that go on both sides. I would not consider that a separate roadway for the purpose of that statute, because you've got kids, residential area, you've got kids on both sides that are going to be going to both sides. So it's kind of a common sense dictates thing. I'm sure you probably get into case law about raised medians in particular locations, but it basically says separate roadways or controlled access highways, which would be like, it's not applicable to here. It would be like the 60.
Yeah, I agree. I just asked 3 motors actually, specifically. So if there is a raised median, you're going to consider it as separate roadways. So if there's a raised median, that person does not have to come to a stop. So,
But if it's at an intersection,
but,
that's not right.
yeah, so within an intersection, let me see here. So if there's a physical barrier like a raised median or a guardrail, they would not have to. Okay, but if there's no physical barrier, if it's straight across, then yeah, they would have to come to a stop, because kids could cross the road.
Like our intersections that have no barrier, then you have to stop.
22, I just stop.
Yeah,
Well,
just
and
do
then-
it.
So again, if you're,
Then again, on point 22, the roads are more narrow. You ever see kids actually cross the
Yes,
road?
all the time.
yeah.
Yeah.
So again,
come to a complete stop.
Yeah.
the idea behind the law is that if there's a physical barrier that's going to prevent pedestrians from crossing the road, then you don't need to stop. But kids can walk over a 6-inch curb in
For
a second,
sure.
and they do.
If the
So
stop sign is
again,
facing you, you should stop.
what's that?
On
I said if the stop sign is facing you, if you see the
Yeah.
stop sign, you should stop. It's just like
Always.
you're looking at it
Yeah.
when you're behind the bus or next to the bus, you're gonna stop.
Yeah.
I mean, if you come up to a stop sign and you're looking at it, you're gonna stop.
On your way out tonight, please say thanks to Jonah for the map again, because he did that just out of the goodness of his heart. Thank you for doing it. It's awesome. All right, thanks for coming.
You guys can all leave. I got